Hi, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Brave Briefings, where brave men and women share either their stories or tips on how we can live a safe and peaceful life, a life devoid of harassment, sexual and gender-based violence. Are you brave? Well, I hope I have a brave man with me today, and I'd like to welcome Tony Dovale. Hi, Tony.
Lewis, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. And you?
I'm excited to be able to share some of my wisdom and insights and thoughts on this topic.
Fabulous. I'm looking forward to it. But before we do that, would you like to tell our viewers a bit about yourself?
Sure, thank you. My name's Tony Dovale. I'm the founder of Life Masters. I'm a personal transformation facilitator. I've been involved in self-mastery for most of my life. As you can see behind me, I have a system called Adapt Agility, which is about optimizing performance of people, teams, leadership, and culture with a foundation of heart work, bringing the heart and the soul to work. And I've been blessed to do what I love and love what I do.
That's brilliant. So, Adapt Agility, I like that. And it's a very catchy name.
Thank you.
So thank you, Tony, for joining us. If you would like to tell us a little bit about how you think we can be brave.
Thank you. The reason why I thought I would respond to your offer in Facebook is we so often see all of these words about the behaviors of men and women, whether it's this toxic masculinity or gender-based violence. And for me, the challenge that I see is if we're wanting to solve the problem, we have to go about it a different way, because we've been trying to solve this problem forever. But I don't think we've made much headway in the process. And I think it's the same as the war on drugs. The moment we're focusing on something that we don't want, we get more of that. And so to do the research, I checked online to see toxic masculinity. There were nearly 3 million pages mentioning something about it for men and 103,000 for women. And I thought, how do I add some value to this brave situation? How do I add some conversation and consciousness, because that's why I'm on the planet, is to raise humanity's consciousness, that we can start to become conscious and aware and make new choices. And I think a large part of the challenges that we see that are the fundamental causes of the behaviors that we see. And just as a backdrop, I'm was a lifeline and a hospice counselor. So I've spent my life in this domain of healing and growth and self-development. I had to do a huge amount of work on me. But essentially, I think there are 3 areas that are impacting the behaviors that we see in the world. One is mental and psychological, because people, both sides, men and women, have gone through pain and trauma and drama, and there's psychological stuff that's happened to us. The second part of the consequence of that is our emotions. We have emotions like shame and anger and rage, and that all comes from loss. And the third part of it is a chemical process, chemical testosterone, dopamine, and all of those different chemicals. So whilst there may be some ideas that people can control or should control what they're doing, there are mitigating, controlling and impacting factors that affect that. And speaking from the man side of the picture, what I've come to understand from I'm part of a men's group called Mankind Project. We do healing work for men. I was in the States doing my initiation training. My initiated name is Fiery Tiger. And one of the core impacts that I've seen is this fatherless environment. You know, we see such high divorce levels of 60, 70%. Women are bringing up men. Even in school, we have this feminization of education where most of the teachers are women. And so there's no men to be role models, example role models from a father level, from an external societal level. And so men, I think, are just struggling. I can speak for me. You know, I had a very tough dad. And so my dad got his toughness from his dad. And so we have this situation where I think the challenge around this thing is men are expected to be okay. Just, you know, you have privilege, you have toxic masculinity issues, but you're okay. And I think a large part of the thing is, I think behavior of men is induced by shame, by anger, by rage, by feeling unheard in many other places. And so when you hear about the GBV and those kind of things, you know, it's a situation that I have very little impact in. The friends that I have, they're not involved in that as far as I'm aware. And it's never been something that's been part of my psychology or culture. But I get painted with those similar kind of brushes in conversations and comments and stuff online. And if you look at how do people cope, how do men cope, I can only speak from a male perspective, you know, 6 times more men commit suicide to check out from the pressure, the stress, and the duress of the situation. So the real challenge is, you know, who's our role models? What does it mean to be a man? What are the qualities of this manhood that you need to be displaying? So I remember as a youngster, I was a shy guy. And I'm kind of the middle of the road. I'm not an ape man with 10 tons of testosterone, and I'm not down onto the homophobic or the gay side that kind of would be the typical delineation as I was growing up. I was in the Navy, and I found a lot of the gay guys used to chase after me. And that also became an issue for me as a youngster, to have to defend myself from for me, it was an onslaught just about, and the constant attempt of these gay guys to have some kind of physical and sexual involvement. But who gives us, what is a man? What are you meant to be? You're meant to be the protector, the strong guy, the courageous guy. You know, women like confidence, they want independence, they want assertiveness. We have to be the ones that approach. But taking those same qualities and amplifying them a little too much, you then get to the toxicity. And I think we have it in both sexes, that we, you know, too much of this protector creates aggression. But think about this. For most of our life, men have been called heroes for being aggressive and protecting the rest of the people that stay home. And so we've been idolized as the hero, the strong, the great, and the amazing kind of guy. And so there's been confusion, and there still is confusion with the kids today, the youngsters today. There's so many, whether it's political views or different male or female groups saying this is right and that's right. So who knows what we're meant to do and what is the best way to go. So I'm going to avoid the B in your brave and just go straight to R for respect. I think respect is something that we all need, would like and appreciate and value, but you can't force somebody to respect you in the long term. Yes, I can make you respect if I've got a gun. I've heard a bit of your story, but respect comes from respect. And I think that's what we have to start, is we've got to move away from this bashing of each other for defensive purposes, and avoid this toxic masculinity situation. Say, what does a great relationship look like? Now, say what you want more of rather than what you want less of. And I think that starts with respecting yourself. You know, Jordan Peterson says he's got his 12 rules of life, and I love his work because it is just hitting such a nerve in the younger male generation on how to be a man. What do I do? How do I step up? Life's tough for everybody. You know this. Men or women, life is tough. But it starts with respecting yourself, making your own bed, looking after yourself and standing up and doing what you can. But if I sense that there's no respect coming from the opposite of what's opposite me, I will then, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So for me, the foundation of success is that you respect yourself enough to respect the other person. Your second part of the thing is your A. And that's what I was saying earlier. If you fight against what you don't want, you're going to get more of that. And so there's a process called appreciative inquiry, which is focus on the positive, build on the strength. Tell me about a time when you were in a great relationship. What made it great? So I'm going to have a play with you, Lewis. I'm going to tell you to not think of a red rose. What's in your head?
Harriet does.
But the challenge is, now when you say don't, if you say to a child, don't touch the glass, what do? They touch the glass because the brain doesn't understand a don't. What you focus on creates pictures, pictures create thoughts and feelings, feelings make a mood, mood predisposes you to action. And so for me, if we're going to make a change and have a brave new world, we have to say, this is what a great relationship looks like. This is what men look like. This is what women behavior looks like. And that's got to be the start of it, is we have to have an agreement to put down the weapons. I did some work with in my team building with a union and a mining company up in Hotazel. And I couldn't even get the black and the white union to go into the room together. But nevertheless, we got them sorted. And at the end of 2 days, the Alan Sutherland, the head of the White Solidarity Union, stood up and said, I don't care what union you're from. If you have a problem, come to me. I'll find a way to help you. And then the black guy made his thoughts and he said, you know what I've discovered? He said, I've discovered that I've been fighting a war that doesn't exist anymore. He said that all of my union people need to do this process, but they won't because they need to be fighting. Their purpose is fighting. And I think that's what we have to make an agreement, is put down the weapons and how do we find a new way forward? And that comes to our V for the vulnerability part of the process. I was beaten for crying. My dad would physically take a fist and say, what are you crying for? I'll give you something to cry for, and move me over the couch. There were times my mother wouldn't speak to him for a week or two. But I was taught that being vulnerable is a weakness. And women don't respect weak men. Women don't like weak men. If you go back to the stories we hear, women like the bad guys, the bad boys. And I know this from my own thing, my Boy Scout behavior. I've gone home alone many times when the bad behavior guys have gone home with the lady that they have chosen. So a large part of how we play the game with men against men, men in a group, they don't talk about their insecurities as women might support each other in a thing. Now, men are always competing. It's either got a bigger thing than you, a bigger bank account than you, a bigger car than you, a bigger business than you, or bigger muscles, because we have to compete. We're competing for women. We go out into the world. We're taught fighting is part of being a hero. You come back with the prize. And so I remember a saying I had in my life was, cowboys don't cry, not even in front of their horses. And I think it's kind of this hereditary behavior patterns that we've been taught. My father taught me, I don't have children, but I've done work with some youth. And that's part of the cultural dynamic that I see in the world. And for me, a big issue is my discipline that I got from the Navy was an incredible process because it clarified my values and it gave me the thinking ability to think, what is important to me? How do I want to show up? What are my lines of behavior? But having said that, it still doesn't mean that I haven't been pushed to limits. And I think I made the comment when we were talking initially, I've had different women in my life, but I've had one or two women that have behaved very badly, very ugly, and literally pushed me right beyond reasonableness. And so you can ask, you can beg, you can plead, you can be nice, but some people will just push you to a point of getting ugly. And I think we have to understand that, is have empathy for the behavior of some of these people, because there's a saying which I love: hurt people hurt people. And very often in my healing work, I have a whole lot of healing modalities. I've worked with military guys, and I was in the Navy myself. And it's the same as if you hit your thumb with a hammer, it goes numb. And you don't control how long that numbness lasts, but it's sore. But the problem is you can't feel. And so if you're expecting empathy or sensitivity from somebody who's been numbed out, it's not going to happen. It doesn't make them a bad person. They're just coping as best they can. And for me, the thing is, part of that challenge is back to the cowboys don't cry. If you've been hurt, we have a mask. We have this pretense, I'm okay. Because if I accept and acknowledge and share that I'm not okay, what does it do to me? And it may do nothing, but it's the fear in my head that stops me from saying I'm not okay. And that's why coaching is such a powerful process, because men don't want to go to a therapist because they don't want to be seen or labeled as broken. But coaching can help them work through stuff, although coaching is not meant to be a therapeutic, a psychological therapeutic process. There are psychologists that can help you. So understanding the empathy part of the process, we can then just create a safe place, because that's a part of our workshops for the men's movement, for Mankind Project. And even when I do my Life Masters, Phoenix and Dragon Slayers workshops, it's creating a safe space to have a look at the scars and the marks and the misprogramming that we have been given. Because we, as a baby, we come in with basic programs of survival, plus some of your historic Akashic information, but we're largely programmed by the people and the society and the culture. So for me, it's that empathy to understand this person is a consequence of their past. So what do we do? So I think the thing that's got to be stopped, number one, is very often we have a small group making a big noise about stuff that's not necessarily bad, that everybody gets painted with a brush. So what do we do to change this picture? I think number one is we need to understand human needs. Core human needs: significance, certainty, variety, connection and belonging, the needs of our ego. But there's also needs for growth and contribution. And we need to be able to teach kids and have workshops and coaching and guidance that supports people, men and women, from youth on what their ideals are, what are sane, balanced reference points. We need to come from a point of view of build more of what we want versus what we don't want. And that's our suggesting, instead of using the words toxic masculinity as a problem, how do we have a war on this toxicity? Let's rather come from a point of view of saying, what do great men look like? What do great relationships look like? Tell me what you want more of versus don't think of the red rose. Understand that behavior is a consequence of conditioning, consciousness, context. And so if we're going to start to create a shift in that, we have to address all of those areas. An important part is role models. I think in the world today, who's a good leader? Who's a good male role model leader? I can't think of one that I really would look up and respect, other than maybe a guy like Jordan Peterson. Discipline is so important. I think the military for me was an incredible discipline, but it did instill and bring into me being willing to go and risk my life to protect the people at home. So, this fighting, this aggression, part of us using guns, using force, maybe needs to be looked at in how we do that. But we still do need to have the power, because if somebody does come and fight our country, who's going to be the one to defend you? The ladies or the men? It's the men. And I say in my relationships, when the gorilla comes to the door, I'm the guy that's going to go and sort out the gorilla. And I think it's so important that we create a space, and I'm thinking now maybe even a TV show where people can talk, because when they talk, they think. Men often are solution providers. So the ladies come and they talk, and then the men says, but you should, now we try and give a solution, when all the woman wanted was an ear to listen. And men maybe could really, really benefit from just having a positive, safe space to just share and get real. For me, the real challenge of life is truly getting meaning from the stuff. We live in this third dimensional space. And Neil Donald Walsh had a sentence that said, in the absence of is not, is not. In the absence of is not good, good doesn't exist. In the absence of high, there is no low. In the absence of fast, there is no slow. In the absence of hot, there is no cold. So this duality is a core function of where we live. And I got given this beautiful book by a friend of mine. And for me, it gave me a very serious reframe, because we all carry a story, and very often our story is being done to me. And I was listening and listening to your whole story, the stuff that you went through in the attack. It's like, show. I mean, I was actually in shock when I was listening to you to go through the process. But essentially, this book's concept is nothing's been done to you. It's all been done for you to grow. And an example is this guy's soul. His soul was with his mother's soul before they came down to the planet. And he said to his mother, please, I need you to betray me while we're on earth and I'm going through this lifetime. And she said, but why would I betray you? I'm your mother, I love you. And he said, if you love me, you will betray me, because that is how I'm going to grow and learn and become better. And that's what the function of this dance is. And you wrote in your thing, the experience that you went through enabled you to find your true purpose and vision in life. And I would be intrigued to see how many people on this planet have their true purpose and vision. Very, very few have that gift of truly knowing that. The challenge is, do we have to go through the fire to find that? And so the spiritual perspective of the book, and I do spiritual work, it's not been done to you, it's been done for you. And in fact, you arranged that and attracted that into your life as part of your thinking and growing process. What happens if the stuff that has happened has been arranged by our soul for us to grow? And for me, I think that enables me to take my past stuff and be brave about it and reframe it and say, all of that hard stuff was done for me to make me more conscious, more aware, more powerful, more sensitive, bring more empathy. I did a lot of work. It took me half my life to break through the chains of my upbringing in my past. But today I believe I'm more conscious, more considerate, more empathetic, and I'm a better balanced man than if I maybe hadn't gone through those things and not had the right role model. So I'm going to come back to you, Lewis. That for me is probably the core message of how we can be brave from my point of view.
Wow, there is so much that you've covered in that little presentation that you gave. Thank you, Tony. Wow. And I think what I'm doing with Brave is exactly what you're saying. It's not thinking of the red rose. It's thinking about the way forward. How, it's a positive approach. What do we need to do to have those values and that empathy and to empower ourselves? So it's really looking at the positive steps forward. And I do love what you've said, that we need a role model, good role models. Where do you learn? We carry most of our gunk we carry from our ancestors, and we need to break the negative chain and find those positive attributes. So that's exactly why I want to go forward with being brave. And the other comment that I enjoyed was, men have always been found to be the heroes because they're so strong and aggressive, and that's also, we've got to change the definition of hero somewhere along the line. So there's a lot of work to be done.
I would venture to say you have to be a hero, because one of the reasons a soul like Jesus comes down to the planet is to put a specific behavior into the consciousness grid, because until somebody's done that, nobody else thinks it's possible. When Roger Bannister was running, his coach dreamed about doing the 4-minute mile, and he managed to get Roger to break his belief system, and he had achieved the sub 4-minute mile. Once that was done into the consciousness of humanity, other people are doing it. Now school kids are doing it. And I was watching your video and listening to you describe the experience, and now I'm watching you and the work that you're doing. For me, you have to be an absolute hero, brave. You're the epitome of brave. So hats off to you. Kudos to you for your efforts and for how you're showing up.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate that. All right, everybody. So you too can be brave, and we can stop this scourge, this pandemic. So you can contact Tony. I'll put his details below this video, or you can contact me at Walking Without Skin. So please do join us. Be bold, be brave, and fly free. Thanks very much, Tony. It's great to have you on the show.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for the opportunity.